curious that a cardinal feature of the Buddha's doctrine is that craving is the root of suffering. But craving, going further back to another root, which is ignorance. Avidya in Sanskrit means lack of vision. Video in Latin is I see, and that's related back to the Sanskrit vidya. Avidya, unseeing, unconsciousness, lies behind craving, and this in its turn lies behind suffering. And of course, when we in the West first heard about this, we interpreted the idea in a very crude way, which is this, that all one's disappointments are the result of frustrated desire. And but it's a very much more subtle point of view than that. To understand Buddhism in any case, you must realize that it is not something like a teaching as we ordinarily understand a system of teaching. It isn't simply a way, as we have in our universities, of a teacher imparting you certain authoritative information, which when you've heard it, you've got the message. It's a dialogue. It's a situation in which the teacher doesn't really have anything to tell you. He's simply reacting to your own bringing up of problems. And it's as if people came to the Buddha and said, "Sir, we suffer terribly, and what are we going to do about that?" And he replies, "Is it not true that you suffer because you desire?" They said, "Well, maybe that makes sense." "All right," he said, "see if you can do without desire." And all those students go away and see if they can calm their desires. They come back and say, "This is pretty difficult, because we're animal beings and we have all these appetites to begin with. And then beyond that, we're in the unfortunate position of being aware of time, being aware of the future. And although it's advantageous to know about the future, in the long run it's depressing, because we all know that we come to a bad end, and that everything falls apart in time. That would be especially true if you lived under the influence of Indian cosmology, where the world is regarded as a process that begins beautifully, but as it goes on, gets worse and worse till it destroys itself. And then there's a long period of rest, and it starts out again, beginning beautifully, but getting worse and worse all the time. Everything runs down in time according to that cosmology. And so there seems to be a fundamental futility. Desire for whatever it is that you want. But behind this, the intention of studying desire, seeing whether one can discipline desire, whether one can curb it, in order that they may justify themselves and find satisfaction in life by bringing up their children, to bring up their children to do the same thing, so it's all retch and no vomit. It never gets there. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire? Well, when we answer that question in a naive way, we figure out that we want a desire, what we want is to control everything. To create girls that don't grow old, apples that don't rot, clothes that never wear out, conveyances that get from one place to another instantly so we don't have to wait, power available to do anything that you could conceive and do it just instantly like that, to get this funny technological omnipotence. But if you take time out to think about that, and really go into it with your full strength of imagination and find out whether that's where you want to be, you will soon see that's not what you want. Because the moment you have a situation where you are really in control of things, that is to say, in which the future is almost completely predictable, you will see, as I said last night, that a completely predictable future is already the past. You've had it. And that's not what you wanted. You want a surprise. And you don't know what that's going to be, because obviously it wouldn't be a surprise if you did. You want a pleasant surprise. But like you say, what sort of a surprise would be pleasant? And you can't really answer that. Because you know, if there are to be such things as pleasant surprises, there must also be unpleasant surprises. There must be rude shocks. So you're like somebody taking one of those wishing well boxes, tubs, where you fish in and you bring out a package. And you don't know whether you've got a dead rat in it or a new camera. And that's the way, that seems to be the thing that really excites people. But quite certainly there comes out of this inquiry a feeling of real disillusionment with the ideal of power. To be in power, to be in control, is not something that any sensible person wants. Imagine the situation of Big Brother. Mr. J. Edgar Hoover, Heinrich Himmler, to be glued day and night to a highly defended office with telephones, television screens, watching, peeking, spying on everyone and anything, getting all this information together. Why? You could never leave the office. I mean, the character, I suppose, like J. Edgar Hoover, goes home in the evening, and but when he's back home, there are guards sitting outside the door. There's that hotline telephone going to something. He's always having to be in control. And he can't take any time off. He can't go for a walk in the park with a friend, or go innocently to the movies, or sit down and just relax and have an undistracted party in the baths at Big Sur. What a pauper this guy is. Completely deprived. Because he wants to be in control, because he wants power. People are frustrated in love. If you're jilted, there's a natural tendency in a human being to seek power as a substitute. And that's a very negative thing. It's like having a bad temper. To seek power after you're frustrated in love, you should try and get back on the love beam. Because nobody wants power. Now, you may say that's shirking responsibility. That if you were a really responsible person, you would go out for power and try to use power to the best possible advantage for the benefit of all. All right, what would be the benefit of all? Ask them. What do you want me to do with this power? I'm dictator. What would you like me to do? Well, nobody knows, because they haven't thought it through. They think of all sorts of short-range things, and they are largely conflicting and confusing, because they're not well thought out. But again, when it finally comes down to it, nobody wants to be God.